Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, production of iHeartRadio.
And you know what? We recently had an episode where we talked about postpartum. And in that episode, we talked about a new study, supposedly, that's talking about how women need more sleep. So I thought we could take this Monday Mini and explore that. Like, what are people saying? Let's talk about this. When did they actually decide that studies about sleep should include women? Guess what, y'all? It didn't happen until the 90s. That's right. They actually expanded the study from just white men to, well, everybody else in like 1990s. Surprise, surprise. Of course, some would argue that because sleep studies didn't start until the 70s, which is relatively late for kind of these type of scientific biological studies, that this is a bit more progressive on the timeline than other types of studies. So I guess here's a cookie. Take it. Thanks for including others.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so with all of that, we know that sleep is important. I think we were trying to remember some of our past episodes, because I'm pretty sure we had a whole conversation about like you having trouble sleeping and how much sleep we actually need and all these different things. I know Kristen and Caroline have several other like difference in reference to like women and babies and whether or not insomnia affect women differently, all those different things. So this is not a new subject, but I thought we would go back to the basic, especially with the fact that they have this newer study. It came out in 2024, I believe. And yes, the typical recommendation that I've always heard, I don't know about you, but like 8 hours is the timeline, but like 7 to 9 hours is the perfect timing is if you have a good restful sleep. And that's a whole different conversation. For me, I have to say I need to either have just like 6 to 7 hours for me to feel like I'm perking up. And according to my watches that tell me how well my sleep is, those are the less sleep. Like if it's more than 5 hours, but less than 7, like less than 8, it says, you did a great job. I score pretty high. And I say pretty high being like 80s. And they're like, yay, a thumbs up out of 100. Or it has to be 10 hours. Like, you better give me the full 10 hours. I need to sleep it off. The in-between is not good for me. I get really odd and groggy. What about you? How have you been sleeping lately? I always ask you this when you stay here. I'm like, how did you sleep? How many hours did you sleep? What time did you go to bed? So let me ask you, how are you sleeping?
I have improved in this arena since I think we last talked about it. 5 is that's my number though.
Yeah.
I feel the best at 5. If I get more than that, I actually feel kind of worse. I've never really gone, I mean, I have, but very rarely have I gone over like 8 or 9, at least in my adulthood. When I was younger, I did. But if 5 is where I'm good, but I do like to doze around. Like my favorite thing is when I don't have to get up yet and I can think about stuff, Star Wars stuff probably. But I do have, part of my trouble with sleeping is I have a like fight or flight reaction to it. And it's so frustrating because it's hard to remember the moment before you fell asleep, correct? Like it's really difficult, but I can, like, my brain will shock me out of it. Like, no, you're not falling asleep. And so I will be almost asleep and it's like I'm drowning and I have to like suck in air and it wakes me right up. So that's my issue, is I have to get past that.
What do you have, like if you have sleep apnea, which is a conversation?
I have my uncle has it and I have gotten tested for it and they said I didn't have it, but my brother has it too. So maybe
it needs to be a different conversation, because that not breathing is a pretty big thing.
It just kind of feels like you're getting shocked out of
yeah, I've had that.
Yeah.
That's when I'm usually in my nap stages when I'm that way, because I'm kind of alert and know I need to wake up. So if I actually shock myself, wake up, like there's something, oh no, I missed it type of thought process, then I'm like, oh, I'm awake. Because something's happening.
Yeah, which I know we'll probably talk about this and have previously talked about this, maybe, depending on when you listen to it, because I have a happy hour coming out about this. But it's true that I probably am not getting a lot of good sleep.
Yeah. And that's the bigger conversation too. Like,
yeah.
Ugh. So again, we know that the lack of sleep can be really bad for you. There are professionals that attribute lack of sleep to the increase of things like type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure and a lot of heart problems. One of the most common diet tips that we get, which I think is actually a helpful diet tip, because it's just healthy in general, is that your body needs rest to reset and that it can affect your metabolism. I'm not a scientist. I can't tell you any of these things, but having good sleep is a good thing. So we're going to just attribute them like, it's good for all around good advice, right?
Mm-hmm.
But does it affect women and men differently? Well, like any other good research that's just newer, maybe? The answer seems unclear. There are those who state that women are in need of more sleep, and that has something to do with your ever-changing life cycles and hormone levels. So here's a look at the Cleveland Clinic article, which has this to say from 2024. And it's from their article, Why Women Need to Sleep More Than Men. So women typically have more issues affecting their sleep. So they may need slightly more of it to make up for disrupted sleep or poor quality sleep, one of the doctors said. So I know as I was reading through some of these studies, they were saying that they don't necessarily need like hours, but at least 30 minutes more because they need to make up for that anxiety, restlessness, hot flashes, whatever it may be. And the issues may include, they say, hormonal changes, depression and anxiety, and sleep disorders, which I feel like sleep disorders, is that a cause or the effect? Like, what are you saying to me? So that's a whole different thing. And according to the Las Vegas OBGYN Center, they talk a little bit about like specific ages. So here's what they say. For the 15 to 20s, they stress the importance of, quote, building a foundation. And as young girls that go through different changes in puberty, actually going to sleep and staying asleep becomes more challenging at this point in time. And that they recommend 8 to 10 hours for this age range. And they often say they need that longer time. Those teenagers, they really need some extra caring. You know what? So parents out there, don't be too upset when they sleep till 2 p.m., when they stayed up till 4 p.m. listening to whatever music they want to listen. I sound so old right now.
Stayed up
Moving
till
on.
4 p.m.
4 a.m. I sound really old because I changed that. Because they stayed up to 4 a.m. This whole conversation is going to make me really aged. So for the 20s and 40s, sleep cycles are often impacted by the hormonal shifts, and they recommend 7 to 9 hours at that typical range again. And of course, they mentioned the need for healthy sleep for those who are experiencing pregnancy or going through pregnancy, and even break down the different reasons and needs per trimester. We're not going to go into that too deeply, but they do have specific things like you need this, this, and this. And I know this, I've heard the stories. It's almost impossible. Every position hurts.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard.
Yep.
Every position hurts. And then we have the whole motherhood thing beyond after the birth. And I would think this is a bit more self-explanatory. So here's a quote from this article. Quote, motherhood transforms sleep into a precious and evolving experience. While the recommended amount of sleep remains the same, the journey of caring for children, especially during their earlier years, bring unique rhythms and patterns to mother's rest. Nighttime caregiving, such as feeding and soothing, can often create more fragmented sleep, but it also reflects the profound bond and attentiveness between mothers and their children. So when we were reading these different articles, they do talk about this level of like it bonds, but then at the same time, like continued like need for help. Doesn't always come, but you can't really do much about it if you're feeding, especially if you're breastfeeding. That's that conversation. As we mentioned in the postpartum episode, that they were saying if men should really step up to do things if it's not for breastfeeding. Like you need to bond as well. This really helps you bond throughout most of the early stages of the children's lives. And really kind of funny, I don't know if I'm going to mention it again a bit, but like as they're talking about how, you know, it's a beautiful thing and people persevere and they really, I'm like, this feels really condescending. Like you're really pushing parents to be like, this is a beautiful moment. This is going to be, I'm like, but you're exhausted and you don't give a shit. Like at this point, no, don't talk to me about these pretty words about bonding. I want to sleep.
I'm not an angry person, But when it comes out, it's because I'm exhausted. If I'm tired, that's when I'll be like, you know what?
They really were trying to paint this pretty picture of like the perfect motherhood, glowing sainthood of like, because you got to wake up at 4 times during the night and best breastfeed your children. You're like, what the hell? Yes, this is great and all, but I'm tired.
Right.
But I did think that was humorous. And then there's the perimenopause and menopause moments. Again, from that same article, quote, as women enter menopause, they often face new and unique challenges to their sleep. Changes in estrogen and progesterone levels can bring about symptoms like insomnia, hot flashes, night sweats, which may disrupt restful sleep. These adjustments can be frustrating, but they also reflect the body's transition into a new phase of life. Despite these challenges, getting 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep per night remains essential for maintaining physical, mental, and emotional well-being. I guess it's just because it's an OBGYN, but again, these flowery languages of like, you're coming into the new phase of your life. Yep. You're going to be miserable, but it's okay.
But it's wonderful, isn't it?
Let me hold your hand to tell you that you're a delicate flower who was withering away from not sleeping. I'm just kidding. And this is what they say about the after menopause. Quote, research indicates that post-menopausal women frequently experience a decline in sleep quality due to hormonal changes and other factors. A meta-analysis published in the Journal of Sleep Research found that up to 60% of postmenopausal women report poor sleep quality, with common issues including insomnia, sleep fragmentations, and increased awakenings during the night. Which I've heard often. And I think this is where I've heard like people will be like, I will go to bed on time, but I'll wake up at 2, stay up for a few hours, and then go back to bed, and then wake up, like sleep for 4 more hours. So that's that fragmented sleep, which can be disruptive, but you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. And there was another recent study that found that people were waking up specifically at 3 a.m. And it was because a lot of people go to bed at the same time. But then if you're not super stressed, you would wake up and fall back asleep and never remember that you woke up at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
But because we're all so stressed, we're remembering waking up and we can't go back to sleep.
See, I was trying not to bring in my TikTok FYP, but you're making me do this, Anney, because according to them, this can be something like thyroid issues where you wake up at 2 a.m.
Okay. All right,
and
so
then,
we've
like,
got
we got similar things. I don't know for sure what that is. It's talking about different types of like, this is the whole level of like magnesium coming in. But like, if you do this beautiful juice of like cherry juice and this, I tried it. It wasn't my cup of tea, but it was good. It was delicious. It wasn't a cup of cherry juice. Very tart cherry juice, by the way. Because my partner, who is a man, has the struggles of that. But like, if he goes to sleep too early, he immediately wakes up at like around 1 or 2. Like he has to wait till at least 11 to try to go to sleep, unless he's exhausted, which is like his sleep schedule is so awful. Like mine's pretty balanced that he will like could sleep one day for 14 hours because like the previous 5 days, he's only had like 2 or 3 hours of sleep. So it finally like catches up with him. Very different schedules, but all that to say is that he has a time that if he's on trying to get on a regular schedule and he tries to go to bed before 11, like he goes to bed at 10, he will be awake at 1, and then he'll be up till 5, and then he's exhausted and sleeps again. But
yeah,
I find that is an interesting fragmented. You're missing the magnesium. I'm just kidding. That's not true. I don't know. So it goes without saying, having a good night's rest for women is healthy, but can be complicated. SummitHealth.com writes that it is important for a good night's rest in the long term for things like balancing hormones, decreasing the risk of heart disease, and lowers the risk of mental health, such as anxiety and depression, and even can help with menstrual cycles, which I was like, that's interesting. Could that be part of the effect of the lack of sleep too?
I feel like, yeah, because a lot of the symptoms of menstrual cycle is because it sucks. Like it hurts and
that's the symptom. It sucks.
It sucks. So you can't sleep. Like it's not like you're angry, but it's not necessarily your hormones. You're just angry because you feel miserable.
You're
like
sad, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I will say, like, because of my cramps were severe, it would wake me up. It would wake me up in the middle of the night. And I would have to go get medicine, and I would just be cramping until like it eases.
Oh yeah. And not even like that's not even taking into account the times you're at a friend's house or something and you're worried about staring their sheets.
Yep.
And I can't sleep.
Yep. If you wear tampons, sometimes it just feels so uncomfortable. Like if you have sensory issues and you're like, I can feel everything.
Yeah.
That can keep you awake. So many things. So, and one of the main reasons that some are saying women may need more sleep may have to do with the overall level of sleep quality, which we did talk about earlier. Again, with things like hormonal changes, the quality of sleep can be affected. Again, when it comes to children, things such as breastfeeding, changing babies, thinking about babies, thinking about whether or not they're okay. Like I would be an anxious wreck. Like, are they okay? Are they asleep? Did they roll over? Where's the blanket? All those things can disrupt a person's quality of sleep and sleep schedule, especially when the brunt of the load is placed on the mothers. We've, again, talked about this with the postpartum episode. And it's not just hormonal life changes, but other things like stress and, again, just the type of sleeper a person may be. Again, you 5 hours and you have these certain times. And if you don't go, because you told me, like, if I don't get to bed by 2, I'm not going to sleep before 4. And I'm like, we will get your ass to bed at 2.
I got a pretty strict schedule. I know what it is, though.
For me, I had to go to bed around 10 or 11. I need at least a good 6 to 7 hours for me to really feel like I'm doing things. And even then, especially with like the aches and pains, like I can feel my hip hurting and I have to roll over. I can like, I'm old. And with all of that, here's what calm.com, who again, not necessarily a sponsor, but I have used actually to help me sleep because of my anxiety before. They write, the mental load keeps women up at night. Women tend to carry a heavy mental load, constantly tracking schedules, appointments, and family responsibilities. These racing thoughts can make it tough to fall asleep. Women wake up more often. Studies show that women are more likely to be light sleepers, whether it's a sick child or a pet or a snoring partner. Women are simply interrupted more at night, which can leave them feeling drained. And they're definitely, like, all of those things, I've seen that, not the sick child part, but like a sick dog. Again, when she jumps off the bed to retch, I'm alert. I'm like, what is happening? Where is she going? The snoring partner, which he's working on this. I've gotten used to it. I have a feeling it's going to be one of those things that if like he's not there at night, I notice it. I'm like, where's he at?
Yeah.
Where's he at?
Yeah.
And I am a light sleeper, but I can also go back to sleep pretty easily.
I can't go back to sleep easily. But I have to say, I have been really chiding myself for what I call working when I'm sleeping. And it's not that I'm even asleep, but I can't. I'm like, what if we did an episode? And I'm like, stop working right now. You need to go to sleep.
I'm the same way. I'm like, oh, yeah, we can have an episode. Oh, I was thinking about this earlier. We need to have an episode. I've done that too. It never stops. Never stops. But for me, I am a light sleeper, but I can go quickly back to sleep. So that's the good news for me. My partner, he's not necessarily a light sleeper, but he's like, I think he's like typical. But if I do wake him up, he's awake. So I feel like a jerk. And I'm like, oh, no. But I used to be, when I was a kid, I would creep my friends out. And I don't know why they did this, because they were creepy to me, not me being creepy. They would try it because they could wake up and look at me. And the moment I felt them looking at me, I would wake up, and it was almost instant. So they would do things just to see if I would. And I would wake up because they're staring at me and I feel it. And they would scream because I'm like, why are you looking at me? I'm like, why are you looking at me? But I'm that kind of light sleeper. Also, quit looking at me when I'm asleep. That's creepy, y'all. So to say that this is a brief explainer is a bit of an understatement. The studies have gone even deeper, talking about the disparities of sleep for the Black community and for other marginalized groups in regards to psychological stressors and factors. Economic divides and discrepancies should be noted as well, as researchers talk about the effects of environmental issues such as noise pollution, light pollution, and other factors. And that's a huge thing. Like, where you're at, how well is your house insulated? Can you afford, the insulated windows? Can you not? Can you hear very well? Are you like my house and right next to the interstate, or in a neighborhood where they think racing cars with a very loud motor is fun at 2 a.m?
Yes. And Kristen and I did a Stuff I Never Told You video about the gender gap in sleeping. And one of the things that Kristen brought up in that video was, if you're like a single mom, for instance, and you have multiple jobs and you don't have a car and you have to take all the transport, like sleep really becomes a luxury at that point.
Right. Because it takes a long time to travel somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And from journalistresource.org, they write, sleep deficiency is also vary by race and ethnicity. The CDC data shows 31% of white and Asian adults and 32% of Hispanic or Latinos reported that they were not getting enough sleep in 2020, lower than the national average of 35%. In comparison, 38% of American Indian or Alaska Natives, 43% of Black people, and 47% of Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islanders report sleeping less than 7 hours per night. So it really does change based on location. There's so many factors to this when we have this conversation. Again, this in comparison to the amount of studies that have and should be had is very small. Just put that in there. But we did want to mention those things. So to end, here's some advice from health.harvard.edu for women specifically on how to get better sleep or how to get quality sleep. One is to create a sleep sanctuary. So keep it cool. Or whatever temperature you need. I need it cold with a nice blanket. But in this economy, we keep it kind of cold with a fan and less of a blanket.
Yeah, that's been a real... I put off the AC for as long as I could, and it definitely impacted my sleep.
It does. They also say keep it cozy and make sure, again, sanctuary. So make it limited what you do in there, and keep it screen-free. I have a hard time with that because I'm like scrolling. Also, now I need noise. That used to not be a thing as much, but now I do. They also say nap only if necessary. They say if you do have to nap, make it less than 30 minutes because it does impact your schedule and sleepiness and all of that. I think that's been said for a while. Avoid caffeine after noon. My limit has been at 2 to 3.
Me too.
Generally, yeah. And I am starting to become like you and having to take it down to 1 cup of coffee. However, the caveat is my coffee maker makes a really like strong level of drink that I like. Almost like a latte level with espresso. And then I add a protein shake, previous sponsor, that had a little bit of caffeine in it to it because I like it. So I actually do have probably the caffeine of 2 cups of coffee. But I count it as 1. They also say do less alcohol. Don't sleep. A lot of people used to and kind of still do use alcohol to sleep, but it actually doesn't give you good sleep because you're dehydrated and your heart rate and all of those things. And the fun fact they put in, caffeine can stay in your body for up to 12 hours. That I didn't know. I knew it affected me. 12 hours is a lot longer than I thought, honestly.
Yeah.
You're just not.
Didn't know that either.
They also say to exercise regularly, but not 3 hours before bedtime because it gets you hyped.
Yeah.
There's so many things to that. And try to keep consistent bedtimes, especially on weekdays or your work days, because I know people have different schedules, but trying to do that consistency is really important. I do start getting sleepy around 10:30, 11, and my dog makes sure to tell me at 10:30 it's bedtime. And she gets like really agitated that we are not in bed. So she is more on the clock than I am about that. Has she made you try to go to bed too?
She gets grumpy and looks at me like, what are we even doing here?
Anney is always with her if I'm not here, which I'm very grateful for. And so Anney has experienced the Peaches' judgmentalness and habits.
Yeah. You can feel her stare.
Mm-hmm.
As she from behind the couch. Yes.
And then she kind of like peeks around the corner if you're not following fast enough. Where are you at, bro? Come on, we're going to bed. So, but there you go. That is that conversation. A very short summary of this conversation that, yes, maybe women do need more sleep, but it's not to the level of like one woman needs 10 hours while men only need 5. Again, it's the type of study they have. This is fairly new. And it's just to make up for the quality. So if they have the perfect partner that does everything truly 50-50, they may actually not need that more sleep. Who knows?
That's true. Maybe we'll see more studies in the future. If only. Well, listeners, please write in if you have any thoughts or experience with anything that we've talked about. You can email us at hello@stuffwenevertoldyou.com. You can find us on Blue Sky at Mom Stuff Podcast or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff Whenever Told You. We're also on YouTube. We have a TeePublic store and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer Christina, our executive producer Maya, and our contributor Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff Whenever Told You is production by iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your favorite shows.